Hi mates, welcome back to my channel. It's Needles by Tiara here. In today's tutorial, I'll be teaching you how to draft and cut this beautiful transparent dartless corset made with a skin net and infused with an Ankara print as displayed on the thumbnail. So with me, I have my pattern paper well laid out. Please ensure that your pattern paper is well laid out. And of course, I've gone ahead to make a line which would demarcate the front pattern from the back pattern. So the line there is to show you that this other part is my front pattern, while the other part is going to be used in drafting my back pattern. I hope you understand. So moving on, please ensure that your pattern paper is on fold, especially for your front pattern. So to draft your front pattern, ensure that your pattern paper at that point is on fold. So with that being done, go in with your straight ruler and go ahead to mark out your straight line at this point. Having done that, remember that your starting line at that point is equally going to serve as your shoulder point line. Now place your tape from your shoulder point line being your starting line and mark out the distance between your client's shoulder to bust point line. So like I said, I'm going to be using this part for the drafting of my front pattern and the other part for the drafting of my back pattern. I hope you understand. So place your tape from your shoulder point and chalk down the distance between your client's shoulder to bust point line, which is this. Next is your client's shoulder to under bust point line, which is this. Next on the list is your client's shoulder to your waist point line, which is this. And lastly is the distance between your client's shoulder to full corset blouse length. So please take note, your client's shoulder to full corset blouse length is you're going to be getting that measurement by placing your tape from your waist point and coming down at that point by 5 inches. I hope you understand. So your corset length is not supposed to be longer than 5 inches. I hope you understand. So I've gone ahead to take that measurement all the way down here to get the accuracy and the consistency of a straight line. Now go in with your straight ruler and connect all those points into each other to form your basic straight lines. So with that being done, now we'd go ahead to label our pattern. This right here is my shoulder point line. This is my bust point line. This is my under bust point line, my waist point line, and lastly my full blouse length point line, which you can equally call your hip point line. So having imputed all those point measurements, now we'd go ahead to find the distance between our client's shoulder to chest point. Now place your tape from your shoulder point. To get that value, divide your client's bust circumference by 6 plus 1.5 inches, whatever the value of it is. Go ahead to chalk it down at that point, which automatically becomes your client's chest point line. Now go in with your straight ruler and connect all those points into each other to form your straight line. Reintroduce your marker and label this point to be your chest point line, which is this. Having done that, we'd go ahead to impute our circumference measurements. Remember that this point is the folded part of your pattern paper. So on your shoulder point line, divide your client's shoulder circumference by 2 and chalk it down. Now, whatever you have imputed on that point, please bring that same value down to your chest point line this way. Reintroduce your straight ruler, connect from the point on your shoulder line down to the point imputed on your chest point line this way. So with that being done, now for our standard neckline, you're going to be imputing on your shoulder point 3 inches as your neckline width and 3 inches as your neckline depth. So you're going to be imputing 3 inches by 3 inches for your neckline. So now with that being said, we'd go in with our curve ruler and we'd go ahead to connect that point into each other to form our neckline. Now on that line, you're going to place your tape from your shoulder point and come down by 1 inch, which will serve as your shoulder slope. Reintroduce your straight ruler, connect from your 3 inches neckline width all the way down to your 1 inch shoulder slope. Now place your tape from your shoulder slope down to your chest point line. Now we're going to be getting the midpoint of that line by folding our tape into 2 and chalking down the midpoint. Still at the midpoint line, you're going to be coming in at that point by 0.5 inch, which is this. Lastly, on your chest point line, divide your client bust circumference by 4 and chalk it down at that point. Now going with your armhole curve, connecting from the shoulder slope into the 0.5 imputed at the midpoint and extensively down to your chest point line. So please pay attention to the way my armhole curve is being placed at this point, and do go ahead to replicate same for yours. I hope you understand. So with that being done, we'll move ahead to impute our circumference measurement. On your bust point line, divide your bust circumference by 4 and chalk it down. Go ahead to impute that same value which we already did on our chest point. Now to your waist point line, divide your client's waist point circumference by 4 and chalk it down at this point. Lastly, to your full corset blouse length, go ahead to divide your client's hip circumference by 4 and chalk it down at that point. So with that being done, go in with your straight ruler, connect from your chest point down to your waist point and extensively from your waist point down to your hip point line. So just pay attention to what I'm doing at this point and do go ahead to replicate same for yours. Now we're going with our straight ruler all over again, connecting from our waist point down to our hip point this way. Now go ahead to smoothen out that point this way. So with that being done, we've successfully imputed all of our circumference measurements. Now on your under bust point, you're going to divide your client nipple to nipple by 2, which is your bust span, and chalk it down at your under bust point. So you're going to be imputing half of your nipple to nipple divided by 2 at your under bust point. So go ahead to chalk down that value at that point. Now you're going to be taking that same value all the way down to your full corset blouse length, which is exactly what I'm doing at this point. Now go in with your straight ruler and connect all those points into each other to form your basic straight line. With that being done, we've successfully imputed our nipple to nipple divided by 2, which is our dart line. So this dart line right here is just to serve as a guide. As we progress, you would get to understand the reason for that. Now place your tape from your shoulder point line. At this point, you'd go ahead to determine your client's off shoulder point, or you could equally call it your over bust point. So this is where you get to determine where you want your client's yoke to stop at and where you want your client's bust up to begin from. So basically you could play around with this. I'm going to be chalking down 7 inches for mine. Yours could be 5 inches, 6 inches, 7 inches, 8 inches, as the case may be. Now go in with your straight ruler and connect those points into each other to form your straight line. I would go ahead to label this point to be my over bust point, which is this. Now, still on your over bust point line, you're going to be imputing your bust bridge. So the bust bridge is the in-between space that demarcates your two cup from each other. So by that I mean you're going to be imputing 0.5 inch on your over bust point line, which is your off shoulder point, and you're going to be taking that value all the way down to your under bust point. So ensure that all your connections is going to be stopping at your under bust point. Please do not exit that point. Now reintroduce your straight ruler and connect all those points into each other to form your basic straight line this way. So with this being done, you've successfully imputed your bust bridge. Now to our waist point line, I want to snatch my waist point line. So basically when you're drafting a dartless corset, you're not going to be imputing any dart. That is the reason why it is called a dartless corset. So I want my waistline I want to have a snatching effect on my waistline. So to achieve that, you're going to be taking off 1 inch from the waist point measurement. You could take off 1 inch, 1.5 inches, as the case may be. But for mine, on my waist point line, I'm going to be taking out 1 inch, which is going to serve as the snatching effect for my waistline for my dartless corset. I hope you understand. Now reintroduce your straight ruler, connect from your chest point all the way down to that 1 inch, which happens to be the snatching point of your waistline point. Go ahead to reconnect from that point extensively down to your hip point. So now we're going to be reconnecting from our waist point down to our hip point. So this time around, we're not going to be doing it with our straight ruler, but rather we're going to be doing it with our slightly curved ruler. So please, basically place your slightly curved ruler this way. Connect from that snatching point of 1 inch, 1.5 inches, or 2 inches. It totally depends on your preference, and take it down to your full corset blouse length this way. So with that being done, we've successfully snatched our waist point by 1 inch. So like I said, yours could be 1 inches, 2 inches, as the case may be. So kindly take note, the straight part of your ruler is no longer valid. The slightly curved part is the valid point. Now place your tape from your full corset blouse length and come down at that point by 0.5 inch. On the sides, you're going to be placing your tape from that point. You're going to be coming up at that point by 1.5 inches. So for mine, I came up at that point by 3 inches. Reason being that my corset length is longer than the 5 inches, which is not supposed to be so. However, at the end of the day, I ended up trimming it off. So it is very much okay. Just come up at that point by 1.5 inches. Going with your slightly curved ruler, connect from that 1.5 inches down to the 0.5 inch that you had imputed at that point. So with this being done, our dartless corset is partly ready. So at this point, so now to make you understand this better, we're going to go in with our marker and we'll go ahead to highlight the valid point. Starting from our bust bridge, we'll go ahead to highlight that point, which is this. So having highlighted our bust bridge, now we'll go ahead to, highlight the side. So like I said earlier on, please, you're going to be taking from the point that reconnects all the way into the 1 inch for your waist snatching effect at that point. So our former waist circumference divided by 4 is no longer valid. The 1 inch point that we came in at that point is the valid point line. Now we're going to go in with our slightly curved ruler like we did initially, and we're going to be reconnecting it all the way in. So this is basically to re-highlight all the points, which is basically this. So go ahead to smoothen out that point. And now for the hemline, you're going to be reconnecting this with your slightly curved ruler, just like you did with your pencil initially. You're going to be highlighting it all the way down. So basically, the reason why I'm doing this is to make sure that you get to understand this better and it is more visible and clear. So with this being done, we have successfully drafted our front pattern. Now moving on to the back pattern of our dartless corsets, we're going to be extending all this line all the way in, our chest point line, our shoulder line, our bust point line, our under bust line, and lastly, our full corset blouse length point line. So we already had our shoulder line extended to our back pattern. Now we'd go ahead to replicate same for the other points this way. So with this being done, we've successfully imputed all of our point measurements. So we have our chest point, bust point, under bust, waist point, and lastly, our full corset blouse length point. Now for our circumference measurement, please kindly take note. All of your measurement is going to be starting from this point. So that point is going to be serving as your folding point for your back pattern. Please take note of that. Go ahead to divide your shoulder circumference by 2 and chalk it down. Now at your chest point line, whatever you have imputed on your shoulder point, please bring that same measurement down to your chest point. Going with your straight ruler, connect all those points into each other to form a straight line, just like you did for your front pattern. So with that being done, the next thing we'd go ahead to do is we're going to be imputing our neckline for the back pattern. So like I said, all your measurement is going to be starting from that point, which happens to be the part of the pattern paper that is facing you. So go ahead to impute 3 inches as your neck width. But for your neck depth, you're going to either impute 1 inch or 1.5 inches. So you're not going to be imputing 3 inches at this point, but rather 1 inch or 1.5 inches. I hope you understand. Place your tape from that point and come down by 1 inch for your shoulder slope. Reintroduce your curve ruler, connect from your 3 inches neckline width into your 1 inch neckline depth this way. So please pay attention to the way my curve ruler is being placed at this point. Now reintroduce your straight ruler all over again, connect from your 3 inches neckline width into your 1 inch shoulder slope for your back pattern. So having done that, now place your tape from your shoulder slope point, take it all the way down to your chest point line, which is this line. Go ahead to fold your tape into two and chalk down the midpoint of that line. Seal at the midpoint, come in by 0.5 inch, which is this, and lastly on your chest point line, divide your chest circumference by 4 and chalk it down at this point. Your bust circumference rather, divided by 4 and chalk it down at that point. Now going with your armhole curve, connecting from your shoulder slope into the midpoint of the 0.5 inch and extensively down to your chest point line this way. So with this being done, you've successfully imputed your armhole curve. Now we're going to be imputing the rest of our circumference measurements. On your chest point line, divide your client's bust circumference by 4 and chalk it down, which we already did. Now on your bust point line, divide your client's bust circumference by 4 and chalk it down as well. Now on your waist point line, go ahead to divide your client's waist circumference by 4 and chalk it down. Lastly, on your full corset blouse length, divide your client hip circumference by 4 and chalk down that value at that point. Reintroduce your straight ruler, connect from your chest point down to your waist point and extensively from your waist point down to your full corset blouse length point line this way. So please, just like you did for your front pattern, go ahead to place your straight ruler and connect that point all the way down. Still with our straight ruler, we're going to be reconnecting from the waist point down to our hip, our full corset blouse length point this way. So with this being done, we've successfully imputed all of our circumference measurements. Now please pay attention. On your waist point line for your front pattern, remember, we came in at that point by 1 inch, which is because we wanted to snatch our waist. So like I said, it is a dartless corset. For that reason, it is not going to be having any dart. So all of our snatching is going to be on the side front of our waist point, which was exactly why we took out 1 inch from our waist circumference divided by 4 for the front pattern. Now on our back pattern, we're going to be imputing that same value. 1 inch snatching waist effect for our front pattern, we're going to be imputing that 1 inch on our waist point, still on our back pattern. I hope you understand. So with that being said, we're going to go in with our straight ruler and we're going to be reconnecting from our chest point down to that 1 inch waist snatching effect. And extensively from that 1 inch from on our waist point, we're going to be taking it down to our full corset blouse length this way. So remember, for our front pattern, we used our slightly curved ruler on this point. So we're going to be using our slightly curved ruler at this point as well for our back pattern. So go ahead to use your slightly curved ruler and take it all the way down this way. Go ahead to blend that point all the way in this way. Lastly, remember, on our full corset blouse length, we came up at this point by 3 inches. So I told you for yours, you're going to be coming up at that point by 1.5 inches. Please remember that. You came up at that point with on your full corset blouse length on the side front, come up at that point with that same value on your back pattern. So 3 inches for my front pattern and 3 inches at my back pattern. It is very, very important and crucial. So before we go ahead to make some connections, now we'll go ahead to determine our off-shoulder point for our back pattern. So your off-shoulder, like I said, is your over bust point. But since the back pattern doesn't have an over bust point, which is your bust point to be precise, we'll call it the depth of our yoke. So you could use your chest point as the depth of your yoke, reason being that it is expected that your client's shoulder to back yoke is supposed to be deeper than that of your front yoke. So remember, on our front yoke, we came down at that point by 7 inches. It is advised that at your back point, you could come down at that point by either 8 inches, 9 inches, as the case may be, but it is expected that your back yoke should be deeper than that of your front yoke. So like I said, my chest point is going to be the depth of my back yoke. So I've gone ahead to label that part. Moving on, still on the depth of your back yoke, which is your chest point line, we're going to be imputing our corset back opening. So at that point, come in by either 1 inch or 1.5 inches, as the case may be. take that measurement all the way down. So the reason for this is to have our corset back opening for our eyelets or our corset back lacing. Going with your straight ruler, go ahead to connect all those points into each other to form your basic straight line. I hope you understand. So with this being done, we've successfully imputed our corset back opening. So now remember, like I said, this is the point that you're going to be attaching your eyelets to. So as a beginner, take note, that point is the point you're going to be attaching your eyelets to. Then again, at this point, remember we came up at that point by 3 inches, which we did for our front pattern. Same we did on our back pattern. So going with your slightly curved ruler and connect from that point all the way in, just like you did on for your front pattern. But for mine, I want a bit of a stylish hemline at that point. So at this point, I'm going to be dividing my client's nipple to nipple by 2 and chalk it down at that point. If you want yours to be a bit stylish at this point, just like I'm doing, divide your nipple to nipple divided by 2 and chalk it down at that point. Still on that point, come up by 1 inch this way. With the reintroduction of my slightly curved ruler, I'm going to be connecting from the 3 inches that was imputed on the side of my full blouse length, full corset blouse length to be precise. I'm going to be connecting it all the way into that 1 inch that I came up with at that point. I'm going to be reintroducing my curve ruler and I'm going to be connecting from that 1 inch all the way in. So please take note, all your connection is going to be stopping on your corset back opening. So at your corset back opening line, which was 1 inch or maybe 1.5 inches, it totally depends on what you did came in at that point with. You're going to be connecting that curve all the way down. So please go ahead to smoothen it out this way. So like I said earlier on, you could maintain using your slightly curved ruler and connecting it all the way in, just like you did for your front pattern. But like I said, for mine, I want a bit of a stylish hemline at that point, hence the reason for this. Now, on your shoulder point, for your neckline, remember, for your neckline depth rather, you came down at that point by 1 inch. On your neckline depth of 1 inch, go ahead to come down further by 0.5 inch. Equally, your chest point line, remember, is the depth of your yoke for your back pattern. So on that point, divide your client's nipple to nipple by 2 and chalk it down at that point. So don't worry, this is basically to serve as a guide. As we progress, you would get to understand the reason for this. So with the introduction of your curve ruler, connect from that 0.5 inch. Take it all the way down to nipple divided by 2 that you had imputed on your back yoke neck depth this way. So this is to achieve your keyhole neckline for your back pattern. Like I said, that is the reason why we came in at that point by our nipple to nipple divided by 2. Like I said, that was basically to serve as a guide. So with this being done, we've successfully drafted for ourselves our Dartless corset back pattern. So just like we did with the front pattern, remember we highlighted all of the points with our marker. And now for our back pattern, I would go ahead to replicate that same process. So this is really not necessary. The reason why I am doing all of this is to ensure that this point is very visible and clear to you, hence the reason for this. So if you have watched this video to this point, I mean, what are you waiting for? Kindly hit on the subscription button, like, share and follow for more of this related content. So having highlighted all of our points, now at this point, this is optional. You're going to be imputing your basic boning pattern. So I did came in at that point, which is my corset back opening by 2 inches. So I took the 2 inches all the way down. So at that point, you're going with your straight ruler rather, and you're going to be tilting it a bit. It is not going to be entirely straight. So as you can see as the thumbnail displayed, it is not straight at that point. So you're going to be tilting it this way and taking it all the way down. So like I said, this is basically to serve as a guide. So this is definitely what you're going to be doing for your boning channel placement on your fashion fabric. So now at this point, you're going to come down by 0.5 inch. So this is basically to have a star line at that point. You do not want it coming out entirely straight, But if you want it coming out entirely straight, it is still very much okay. But preferably, I am going to come down by 0.5 inch and connect it all the way into my chest point this way. So you could use either the slightly tilted point, which is the slightly curved part, or the straight parts. So either way, it is very much okay. So now for those that is going to be using the slight point, you're going to be extending the depth of your yoke all the way down to that point. So now at this point, I've gone ahead to highlight that line as well. So like I said, you're going to understand the reason for this as we progress. And voila, our perfectly drafted dartless corset is ready. So our dartless corset is partly ready for both our front pattern and our back pattern. So at this point, I do not want this video coming out very long. So I'm going to be dropping the part 2 of this video. Please kindly hit on the subscription button so that you'd be the first to get notified when it drops on our channel. Thank you and see you on my next video. Bye.